I need you to really pay attention to the numbers I'm about to share with you because something is happening that most people are completely missing. We are talking about 37.6 million ounces of silver. Just gone. Vanished. In a matter of 47 days, that massive amount of metal just disappeared from the COMEX vaults. Now, to put that in perspective, you have to understand that we haven't seen a drain of this magnitude not since 1980. And if you know your financial history, you know exactly what else happened in 1980. That was the year silver prices absolutely exploded, hitting $49 an ounce. It was a time when the entire futures market was practically shaking, almost ready to collapse entirely. And it's not just about what happened 40 years ago. Look at what is happening right now, literally this year. On February 14th, 2025, we saw something unprecedented occur in South Korea. 4 of their major banks, these aren't small operations, these are major financial institutions, they just stopped selling silver. They didn't say, oh, we'll sell it to you next week, or we'll have more stock tomorrow. No, they stopped indefinitely. Just like that, the window closed. Then you look over at China. They have essentially blocked their own citizens from buying physical precious metals. And Russia? They've been banned from the London trading floors. You have to ask yourself, why is all of this happening at the same time? Right now, we are seeing something that theoretically shouldn't even be possible in a healthy market. Here's the thing that should make the hair on the back of your neck stand up. The spot price of silver is trading higher than the futures price. Now, in the financial world, we call this backwardation. I know that sounds like a fancy technical term, but let me break it down into plain English for you. It basically means that people are so desperate, so panicked to get their hands on actual silver right this second, that they are willing to pay more for it today than for a promise to have it delivered tomorrow or next month. That is not normal market behavior. That is panic buying, pure and simple. And listen, this isn't just about the price of silver ticking up a few cents. What we are watching is stage 3 of a very specific 4-stage pattern that has played out again and again throughout human history. It's a cycle. And the scary part is, when we hit stage 4, and we are getting there, the price isn't even going to matter anymore. Because at that point, it doesn't matter how much cash you have, you simply won't be able to find any metal to buy. This isn't the first time we've seen this movie. This pattern has happened 3 times before, and every single time there were a few people who saw it coming early, and those people made what we call generational wealth. They set their families up for decades. And then there were the other people, the majority, who just stood there on the sidelines, scratching their heads, wondering what the hell just happened to the world. So what I want to do here is walk you through exactly where we are in this pattern right now. I want you to understand why this time is actually different than before, and I want to share the $17 billion lesson that the Hunt brothers learned the hard way, so you don't make the same mistake. Let's look at the pattern itself. It is brutally simple when you break it down. Stage 1 is what we call establishment. This is when a commodity becomes money. Governments back their currency with it. For decades, prices stay stable, and everyone trusts the system. Think back to before 1964 in America. Silver was in our coins, it was in our pockets. You could literally walk into a bank with a paper dollar and exchange it for actual silver. It was stable, it was predictable, it was trusted. But then comes stage 2, manipulation. This is where things get messy. Someone, usually on Wall Street, realizes, hey, I can create paper claims on this metal without actually having the metal. So 1 ounce of real, dig it out of the ground silver becomes 10 paper contracts. Then it becomes 50 contracts, then 100. Why do they do this? Because trading paper is profitable and easy, while moving physical metal is expensive and heavy. So what do? They flood the market with these paper promises. When you flood the market with supply, even if it's fake paper supply, the price drops. It looks like there's an infinite amount of silver, but there isn't. That leads us to stage 3, the squeeze. This is where we are right now. Demand starts to grow. People start showing up and saying, okay, I'd like my delivery now, please. And suddenly the vaults start to drain. Everyone realizes at the exact same moment that there aren't enough physical ounces to cover all those paper promises. That is when the panic sets in. People rush to convert their paper contracts into physical metal, but the physical metal just doesn't exist. And that triggers stage 4, the break. This is the endgame. The paper market collapses. Trading actually halts. Delivery failures start to cascade through the system. The price of physical metal goes parabolic. It shoots straight up, while those paper contracts, they become worthless. The only people who win in stage 4 are the ones holding the real thing. Everyone else learns a very, very expensive lesson about the difference between owning an asset and owning a promise. When stage 4 hits, there is no paper price. There is only physical. I'm going to prove to you, using the COMEX's own data, that we are deep, deep into stage 3 right now. But Before we get into the charts, you have to understand why silver is fundamentally different from gold or any other commodity. Gold is money. That's it. It sits in a vault. But silver? Silver is money, yes, but it is also the most critical industrial material for modern technology. Think about your life. Your smartphone, it needs silver. Solar panels, silver. The electronics in your car, silver. Medical equipment, 5G towers, even missiles, they all depend on silver. Every single piece of technology that defines our modern civilization requires this metal. And here's the problem. We are running out of it. In 2024, we had a deficit of 148.9 million ounces. That was the fourth straight year of a deficit. We are mining less of it every single year, but we are using more of it every single year. There was a study from the University of New South Wales that said the solar panel industry alone could drain anywhere from 85 to 98% of the entire global silver reserves by the year 2050. That is just one industry. Now, let me tell you a story to prove this pattern is real. It's the most dramatic example in history. We're talking about two brothers, 200 million ounces of silver, and a plan that almost broke the world's financial system. I'm talking about Nelson Bunker Hunt and William Herbert Hunt, two oil billionaires from Texas. Back in 1979, they started buying silver. And I don't mean they bought a little bit, they bought everything. They accumulated 200 million ounces. About half of it was physical metal, and the other half was futures contracts. Their bet was simple. They believed the dollar was dying. Inflation was running at 13%. Nixon had killed the gold standard in 1971. They believed fiat currency was collapsing, and that silver was the only real money. And you know what? They weren't wrong about the fundamentals. In January of 1979, silver was $6 an ounce. By September, it was $10. By the end of the year, it was $30. Then, on January 17, 1980, it hit $49.45. That is a 724% increase in just 12 months. The Hunt brothers were suddenly worth billions. They were the richest men in America. And Wall Street? Wall Street was absolutely terrified. Why? Because the Hunts weren't just speculating. They were taking delivery. They were actually draining the physical supply from the system. And they were using leverage to control far more silver than they could have just bought with cash. Every one of those contracts was a claim on physical metal, and the Hunts were demanding that metal. The COMEX panicked. The vaults were emptying out. The exchange knew that if the Hunts kept demanding delivery, the whole exchange would fail. So the COMEX did what exchanges always do when they are losing the game. They changed the rules. In the middle of the game, on January 7th, 1980, they introduced Silver Rule 7. Basically, they said, no more buying. You can sell, or you can hold what you have, but you cannot buy any new positions. Translation, we are freezing the Hunt brothers out. But amazingly, silver kept climbing anyway. So on January 21st, they raised the margin requirements drastically. Overnight, holding those futures contracts became impossibly expensive. The Hunts suddenly needed hundreds of millions of dollars in additional cash just to keep their positions open. They scrambled. They started to sell. Other people panicked and sold. Then came March 27th, 1980. Silver Thursday. The price of silver collapsed from $21 down to $10.80 in a single day. The Hunt brothers lost $1.7 billion. They went bankrupt. Brokerage houses were teetering on the edge. Banks froze credit. The whole system almost broke. But, and this is the part everyone forgets, think about the people who were holding physical silver. Not the futures contracts, not the paper leverage, but the people who actually had the metal in their possession. They didn't lose anything. Even when the dust settled and silver was back at $10, that was still 66% higher than where it had started at $6. The people who bought physical at $6 and just held it through the chaos made enormous returns. The Hunt brothers failed because they played the paper game with leverage. The system changed the rules on them. But listen to me, you cannot change the rules on something you actually own and hold in your hand. That lesson is so important right now because we are watching the exact same setup today, only it is actually worse this time. Remember when Nixon closed the gold window in 1971? It was the same pattern. Foreign banks wanted their physical gold. America didn't have enough, so Nixon said, no more gold backing. Gold went from $35 to $850. Silver went from $1.40 to $49. Both metals tell the same story. When you remove the physical backing from money, the paper loses value and the physical stuff explodes. We saw it again with palladium in 2001. Russia controlled supply, delayed shipments, physical metal vanished, and the price spiked 263% in 2 years. The paper traders got crushed, the physical holders got rich. So, where are we right now with silver? Let me walk you through the data that just came out this week. Stage 1 is complete. For 150 years, silver was money. U.S. coins were 90% silver until 1965. Then they took the silver out because the metal was worth more than the face value of the coin. That should have been the warning sign right there. The market valued silver more than the government did, but instead, they repositioned silver as just an industrial commodity. Check. Stage 2 is also complete. Once silver stopped being money, Wall Street went to work creating the paper market, futures, ETFs, derivatives. For every ounce of real silver, they issued 50, maybe 100 paper claims. Look at the largest silver ETF, SLV. They claim to hold 440 million ounces. But if you actually read the prospectus, the fine print, it says they can settle in cash if physical isn't available. Your silver investment might just be a promise to pay you cash, not actual metal. The COMEX has total vaults of 265 million ounces, but the registered category, the stuff actually ready for delivery, is only 43 million ounces. So when futures traders demand delivery, there are only 43 million ounces available to cover hundreds of millions in open interest. See the problem? This worked for decades because nobody asked for the metal. But now, that's over? Check. Stage 3 is active right now. On October 1st, 2024, the COMEX had 80 million ounces registered. By December 3rd, 2025, it was down to 43 million. That is not normal profit-taking, folks. That is a bank run. It is accelerating. On November 17th alone, 6.13 million ounces were withdrawn in a single day. And remember South Korea? February 14th, 2025, 4 major banks suspended sales indefinitely. These banks have unlimited capital. If they can't source silver, what does that tell you about the actual availability out there? China has raised the risk classifications, so their citizens can't buy through banks. Why? Because China is hoarding it for the state. They are restricting exports. They are preparing for something big. India is importing silver at record levels. They know what a currency crisis looks like. They know physical metal protects you when paper fails. Now, add in the industrial demand. Solar panels take up 12% of the annual supply. Electric vehicles use double the silver of gas cars. 5G, AI data centers, all of it needs silver. Supply has been declining since 2016 and recycling can't keep up. We are looking at a projected deficit of 117.6 million ounces in 2025. Investors are waking up. ETF inflows are surging. Retail buying is at levels we haven't seen since 2011. Online dealers are running out of stock. Premiums are rising. When you have to pay $5 over the spot price just to get physical metal, the paper price is lying to you. And backwardation, spot price above futures, that screams desperation. Futures should cost more because of storage fees. When spot is higher, it means people are panicked and want it now. We are deep in stage 3. The squeeze is active. Stage 4 hasn't fully arrived yet, but we are standing right at the door. In November 2025, the CME halted trading due to a cooling failure. A cooling failure? In a military-grade infrastructure system? Come on. Veteran traders know that when exchanges halt in the middle of a spike, it means someone big is in trouble. The COMEX has 2 options. They can change the rules like they did in 1980, raise margins, suspend delivery, or they can let the market run and watch the price go parabolic. They will try to control it. But this isn't just 2 brothers from Texas this time. This is global demand. This is industrial users who need the metal to build products. This is central banks. This is the BRICS nations. You can't change the rules on everyone at the same time. When stage 4 fully hits, trading halts will become common. Delivery failures will cascade. Contracts will get settled in cash against your will. Premiums will explode. You might see a spot price of $60, but dealers will be charging $80, $90, maybe $100 just to get the metal. Then one day, the paper market freezes entirely. Lawsuits get filed. Regulators step in. And the people holding physical silver, they just watch from safety because they have already won. This isn't speculation, it is pattern recognition. And the pattern is screaming at us. So here is what you need to do. First, understand the difference between owning and speculating. Trading paper for quick profit is speculation. Buying silver is protection, it is insurance. There's only one real option: physical metal in your possession. Not in a vault you don't control, not in an ETF, in your hand, in your safe, where you can see it and touch it. That is ownership. Second, buy now while the premiums are still reasonable. You can get silver today for $3 to $5 over spot. When the squeeze accelerates, those premiums will be $20, $30, $50 over spot. Eventually, there won't be any available at any price. Dealers will be sold out. Mints will have year-long wait lists. You will be standing there with cash that is losing value, unable to convert it into the one asset that is gaining value. Third, focus on liquid stuff. Silver coins. Silver bars from major mints. Don't buy weird collectibles or numismatics. Don't buy fancy stuff. You want pure silver content in forms that anyone recognizes. American Silver Eagles, Canadian Maple Leafs, 100-ounce bars from big refiners. Liquidity matters when the system breaks. Fourth, scale it appropriately. Don't go all in. Take 10%, 15%, maybe 20% of your assets and convert it to physical silver. Enough that if this pattern completes, you're protected. But not so much that if something weird happens, you're destroyed. Balance caution with action. Fifth, store it properly. A home safe, a bank safety deposit box, if you really trust them, a private vault if you want. But make sure you control the access. No third-party custody where someone else has the keys. The whole point is to remove counterparty risk, so don't reintroduce it with bad storage. The window is closing, not because I say so, but because the vaults are empty. Banks are stepping back. Backwardation is screaming that supply is gone. The market is telling you the truth. You just have to listen. Every fiat currency in history has failed. The average lifespan is 27 years. The US dollar has been fully fiat since 1971. That is 54 years. We are on borrowed time. You cannot print silver. You cannot create it with a policy change. You cannot algorithm your way out of a supply deficit. Physics doesn't care about economic models. So here's my question to you. Are you going to wait until the market breaks and wish you had acted? Or are you going to recognize the pattern, trust the data, and do something while there's still time? The choice is yours, but the window won't stay open forever. If this made sense to you, if you see the pattern, subscribe now, because what I've shown you is just the beginning. The collapse of the silver paper market is just one symptom of a much larger systemic failure. In the next video, I'm going to show you how deep this really goes. The currency crisis, the debt spiral, the derivatives, time bomb, it's all following the same 4-stage pattern, and it's all headed to the same conclusion. Subscribe, watch the next video, and learn how to survive what is coming. Because the people who see the pattern early don't just survive, they thrive. The clock is ticking.